Welcome back to the Metro on 1019 WDET-FM, Detroit Public Radio. I'm Tia Graham. We spend a lot of time on this show discussing the challenges and opportunities that are present in the Michigan education ecosystem. And while we hear from a number of advocates, experts, and thought leaders, teachers are on the front lines of these subjects. Teachers are the warriors that face the highs and lows of the education system intimately. They witness its impacts on students day in and day out. So we want to take time to acknowledge one particular teacher that was recently celebrated for their dedication to the craft. Every year for over 70 years, the Department of Education has selected a Teacher of the Year. The award is given to someone who pushes Michigan education forward, and the winner then serves as a representative and advocate for teachers in Michigan. Last week, Corey Rosser from Quest High School in North Branch, Michigan, was announced as the new Teacher of the Year. Corey is a program coordinator and social studies teacher at Quest. He's been an important part of the faculty there for 21 years. Corey joins us now. Thank you so much for joining us on the Metro, Corey.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on. It's a privilege.
Of course. So, Corey, you, as I just mentioned, are located in North Branch, Michigan. That's about an hour and a half drive north from our station here in the Cass Corridor in Detroit. Tell us a little about North Branch and its community.
So North Branch is a small community. We get a lot of school choice students. I believe K through 12, we have about 2,400 students. Our high school, our traditional high school, has around 700 students, and our alternative high school has around 40 to 60, fluctuates from time to time. So farming community, kind of located up here, as I said, north.
Yeah. So let's start with your new role. You mentioned, you were nominated for this by a coworker, and then you had to submit an essay and do an interview. So what was the prompt for the essay, and what did you submit?
There were several different prompts. I think there were 5 or 7. In honesty, I don't recall the specific prompts. I thought about how I wanted to answer them initially, and then when I started typing, it just kind of flowed. I took the approach of if my values and beliefs align with what they're looking for, fantastic. If they're looking for somebody to speak and represent teachers, as long as it aligns with my beliefs, that's something I want to do. And so it wasn't really, my responses weren't really things that I said and thought about and tried to formulate. It was kind of more free flowing. It was just, here's the things I'm about, here's what I believe, here's what we do at Quest High School.
Now, you work in an alternative school, so you talked a little bit about the 2 different schools there in the district. So you work at the alternative school so that students who attend, they're often facing challenges that impact their learning. Can you briefly describe some of the challenges that your students face?
Yeah, it's so unique. We have so many students facing so many challenges. Sometimes it's the loss of a parent, sometimes the loss of both parents, sometimes it's anxiety, sometimes it's just health issues. Other health issues. A lot of times they're academically deficient, but that's usually kind of the end result of all these other things that are going on in their life. And so we have a lot of really brilliant students, a lot of really motivated kids, but sometimes school just doesn't line up in a way that fits what's going on in their personal life.
Yeah. And how do you address that situation and support those students, especially as they are growing into young adults?
I think the key you said is the young adult aspect. I think when you're dealing with young adults that are 16, 17, and 18, I think you've got to remember that they are young adults. And so I mean that in 2 ways. They're learning how to be an adult. They're being trained on how to be an adult. They're trying to navigate all of the challenges that they have that really are not challenges I had in my life growing up. And probably a lot of challenges that a lot of us didn't have. No. And so they're dealing with things that are abnormal for their age. But I think the key is you're treating with respect. You remember that you're working with young adults that sometimes have bad days. Sometimes they don't get to be a kid in the ways that a lot of our kids get to be. And so you treat them as a young adult, but remember sometimes they're going to have those days where they need to be helped out a little bit. And so there's a couple different ways we do that. One of my favorite things that we do every day, we call it a roundtable. So we have a roundtable discussion. Like I said, because we're small, we have an AM session and a PM session, and the kids are typically split. The other half of the day, they attend an ed tech center or they do virtual learning at home. But each half the day, we do a roundtable discussion where we just talk about, it usually starts with daily announcements. It usually leads to setting goals for the week, for the day. It might be just challenges they're having or cool things going on in their life, like they have a job interview. We talk about what they can expect. Other people in the room have maybe interviewed there. What questions did they ask? How can we help each other rise up out of our circumstance?
And just thinking about that model, that open space for young kids and young adults actually to speak and express themselves, and not only to talk about what's going on, but to hear that their peers may be experiencing similar things or maybe talking about joys or highlights. So why is it so important that you cultivate this space for students?
Well, I think a lot of times when students are at risk, like I said, there's a number of factors that lead them to be at risk, but they don't always have a steady space where they can discuss those things, where they have people that are paying attention to that day to day. A lot of times when you get students that are at risk, they come with their own socioeconomic issues. It leads to a lot of parents that are doing everything they can to provide for their family. Some are second shift, some are third shift. It's not as conducive to investing into their kids' education as maybe yours or mine are, and so to have another consistent adult in their life that can kind of be that catch that maybe other adults in life aren't able to do because of their circumstance. I just think that makes a huge difference for them to know that they have that consistency. The other thing with us being a small alternative ed and us having, 20 to 30 students here at a time, they really do feel valued because they are part of something. A lot of times when students get behind, it's because they don't identify with any group in the school. There's the kids that play football. There's the kids that are in the robotics club or drama or band or all the other different awesome things that most schools offer, but it doesn't catch everyone. And so to give them something that they feel part of and to make them feel truly missed when they're not here. Not just that, hey, we noticed, but like, we missed you. We want you here. I hope you can make it tomorrow. Makes a big difference.
Yeah. You're listening to The Metro. I'm Tia Graham. My guest is Corey Rosser, the next Teacher of the Year for the state of Michigan. He works at Quest High School in North Branch, Michigan, and we are discussing his approach to creating an attractive and engaging environment for students in schools. Now, Corey, we do want to hear your thoughts on some of the major topics facing Michigan schools right now. Schools are struggling. They're struggling to overcome learning loss post-pandemic, and Michigan students are also behind in reading in particular. What are you seeing in your classroom that indicates struggles with literacy? And what do you think about any solutions to this problem? How can we get to the root of this?
Well, I think one of the major contributors is just the way students communicate. We live in a digital age that's far beyond what I grew up in. I graduated high school in 1999. With all the social media and different forms of communication, when we look at the way students communicate with each other, when it's not formal communication through submitting assignments, you look at the way they communicate with each other, a lot of times their work is now looking the same. It lacks punctuation sometimes, lacks capitalization, lacks flow. Sometimes it's difficult to read. And so I think we need to really work on being able to flow back and forth, right? You need to adapt to the area in your life that you're in at that moment. And so when you're talking to friends through social media, that's going to be a different form of communication than when you're writing a paper for a teacher. And so I think really we need to understand their form of communication and get them to really understand and value a more formal form of communication when we get to academics.
Yeah, and for folks who are like, what is he talking? The lingo that's being used right now on social media, TikTok, whether it be the way that you're communicating through Snapchat, no matter what the communication avenue is right now, there is a clear distinction on what's the communication skills between certain generations right now. You can feel it when you're just having a regular conversation with someone who's a little bit younger than you. I graduated high school in 2010, so I was at the cusp of Facebook starting to really integrate itself within our classrooms and within our computer labs. So it's just been very interesting to see how it's taken a hold of the new generation. Corey, are you opposed to cell phones in classrooms?
I'm not opposed entirely to cell phones and technology in classrooms. The first reason is because it's part of our world, right? We've got to learn to exist and thrive and be successful in the world that we live in. And so for us as educators, just to completely close off technology in the classroom, it's not an authentic experience for a student who knows that in every other facet of life, they're surrounded by technology. I'm not completely opposed to tech in the classroom, but I think we need to work on using technology in a more successful manner. The appropriate times to use certain technology and when, how to use technology, and really use that technology to enhance what we're doing and not just completely replace. There's so much going on with artificial intelligence right now. That I think it's our duty, and I'm really proud of our district, North Branch Area Schools, that one of our board goals is to use AI, to integrate AI, to try to teach students how to successfully use it to enhance the work that they do and not to do just the work for them.
And Corey, in 30 seconds or less, you are the Teacher of the Year. When do you start, and what are some of your goals?
So I start on July 1st. We have our induction on July 11th. I'm looking forward to meeting all the other regional teachers of the year. At that time, we're going to meet as a group of 10 and really determine what our goals are. We've got 10 personalities that come from different areas of the state, 10 different areas that all have unique challenges. There's obviously those universal challenges that we all face, but the challenges that I face in North Branch, Michigan aren't the challenges that we face at the Detroit Public Schools right now. And so I think we need to, as a group, really decide how are we going to approach this and set those goals.
Corey Wasser is a program coordinator and social studies teacher at Quest High School in North Branch, Michigan. He was recently named the 2025-2026 Michigan Teacher of the Year. Corey, thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
Appreciate it. Thank you again for having me on. Have a wonderful week.
You too. Coming up on the Metro tomorrow, we'll dive deeper into a recent curiosity about a new book called Mind Over Matter, which uncovers the lost history of Fortune Records. The Metro is produced by Sam Corey, Carey Jr. II, and Jack Philbrandt. Our engineer is Nate Bender. Our senior producer is David Lyons. I'm co-host Tia Graham with Robin Vincent, and the Metro is a production of WDET. This is WDET-FM, Detroit Public Radio, your connection to news, music, and conversation.